now we are going to be going in to Tier 2 of our deep dive. So let's get the ball rolling with our driver pairings for Tier 2. So first up, for McLaren, we have Lero Fusion, who has been retained and will be in the McLaren car. His teammate is going to be ERN Maxwell G. He is moving away from Tier 1 and is opted to go down to Tier 2. And truth be told, I mean, I pointed out myself, Maxwell last game he was struggling pretty hard, especially in the lower card of the racing of the cars in Alpine. He was struggling and he was not having a good time. So I told him, I said, if you want, maybe we can see if you could try to be in Tier 2 just so you can find your form and once you find your form and you're back into it, we can get you back into Tier 1. He agreed. And he thought it was a good idea to move down to Tier 2 so he can get back into his form that he was a couple of games ago, and be back into Tier 1. So, I mean, Fusion and Maxwell, I think it's a pretty good pairing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will be surprised to hear that the driver in this lineup that has a championship is not Maxwell. 10 wins to his name across all tiers, I'm pretty sure. Maybe 11, I think it is, something like that. But no championship. Fusion, very good in Tier 3. Still looking for that first Tier 2. And remember, Brazil on track win. But that 10-second, yeah, that will probably haunt him for a while. But he's still looking for that first Tier 2 win. Not far from it. Maybe this game he does it. Maxwell struggled in the Sauber too. His last points finish comes from Season 11 of Monza. I mean, that's how long ago we're talking for Maxwell to have some form of success. And maybe this game will do it for him. Time will tell.
Yeah, very
Hope
much
so, though.
So our next team is the Ferrari team, and oh boy, talk about a unique field here. So we have multi-time RPL champion in Tier 1, F2, and Tier 2. We have Reese in the Ferrari car, back in Tier 2, and he is partnered with the defending Tier 2 champion of Night Owl. So a star-studded lineup for Ferrari.
Yeah. How long will it last, though? I don't know. I mean, you look at Reese's pace this game so far, and it screams Tier 1 all over again. I knew this was going to happen. I think everyone thought it could. And he found something again at the end of the game cycle that he was missing the entire game cycle anyway. He almost got beaten in the championship by his own teammate, Torn Penguin, at the time, which I would say was very concerning, but that also shows Penguin's improvement too. Yeah, Night Owl is a champion. We'll see, can he back it up? This game so far, he seems to be struggling a little bit in terms of where he was last game. Everyone talked about, will he move to Tier 1? Will he go up there? Well, the guy who might is his teammate. Is the teammate of his that has championships across all tiers. And you look at a game where Wheel is with that advantage right now, and that feels weird to say, but especially based on the past games, it's a nice change. Having a wheel actually matters, and for Reese Dainty, it'll benefit him. Ferrari being third, fourth fastest might not benefit Night Owl, though he's on the back foot so far. We'll see.
Yeah, very much so. And speaking of Red Bull, we were talking about one of the drivers from the Red Bull Academy, that being Alan J, or AJ. He is in the Tier 2 Red Bull, moving out from Tier 3, and I'm not gonna lie, he is definitely going to be one driver to keep an eye on as for this Tier 2 season.
Absolutely.
And his teammate is, well, the driver that finished, I believe, was it second or third in the Drivers' Championship?
Penguin.
It was third.
Yep.
Yeah, Torn Penguin. So this is going to be So this pairing could also be pretty dangerous.
A rookie and a driver who almost beat Reese Dainty in the same equipment. Yeah, that is kind of crazy to think about. I mean, last season it was Leo Fusion we were looking at as the rookie and looking to see what he could do. AJ, man, I cannot wait to see what he does. Moving up to tier 2, a promotion there, mid, I don't even want to say mid-season, before the game cycle even started, shades of what Alex Norris had happened to him last season in tier 2, where he was supposed to raced in tier 1 instead. And we'll talk about Alex Norris probably in the next hour or two, but as for AJ though, yeah, I can't wait to see what he does in Penguin. He started winning, hasn't stopped winning, but that's a driver you want to talk about in terms of when we get to the street circuits on the calendar. He wins almost every single one of them, it seems, so I cannot wait to see. His first win, it came at Austria, but since then, the wins have come at street circuits, and same with the podiums, too.
Agreed in that. So, our next team, we have the Mercedes team, and this is a very interesting pair. So, we have Beatnik in the Mercedes car, and partnering him is Mintoki. So, Mintoki, I will say, for one of the only female drivers in the league so far, she has been steadily rising up in regards to her consistency, her pace, and her results. She's been steadily rising up. And to have her partner with Beatnik, who has experience winning races and even winning championships and stuff like that, Beatnik and Mintoki teaming together, this could be a good pairing for the Mercedes team.
A caliente lineup. You know, I cannot believe we're talking about the tier 2 lineup being this strong. Like, in terms of our top 4 teams. I mean, I just hope we get the rest of the grid like that. I mean, I've not paid attention to the lineup well enough. So, the whole thing I'm saying. So, we'll see. But Beatnik, back on form. Similar to Reese Dainty, maybe I'd say just slightly slower. Beatnik and Mintoki, this is a match made in heaven with how last game went. Mintoki had a lot of poles. Beatnik had the race pace. Mintoki didn't have the strategy. Beatnik did. You put them two together, I think we're looking at a good lineup now. And one that can work together well. They are not far off on pace of each other, and that's a good thing. This car, can it achieve more with the current drivers? Yes. And that's exactly what happened a few seasons ago in Tier 2 with Redfire and Vodka. Mintoki, last 2 seasons, has racked up quite a few poles. And you look at who the all-time pole leader is, and it's Reese. If Reese gets moved up to Tier 1 and Mintoki stays in Tier 2 for a long time, she might get the most poles in Tier 2 history. That's where her strong suit is, qualifying. Beatnik, it's race pace. But the big thing I think about here with Mintoki is that if she can qualify well this game, like she did last game quite a bit, the dirty air coming into effect might be her best friend. She needed that in some races where she was on pole and things didn't go right. But obviously Beatnik, though, things have gone right in terms of race pace, back to winning ways, won our last race on last game cycle in Tier 2. So a lineup that is back on the charge, and when you talk about title contenders later on, I'm looking at probably both these drivers being in that conversation. Maybe not right now, but eventually.
Yeah, very much so. And also a quick side note in regards to last season, the two of them together, Beatnik and Mintoki, last season in Tier 2, made 5 total trips to the podium.
Yeah.
So now our next pair is the Aston Martin pair, and this is a very interesting lineup to say the least.
Oh,
so the first driver in regards to Aston Martin is RPL Zakaria. Zakaria involved in the Aston Martin car, but his teammate moving from Tier 2 in the McLaren Academy, he has now moved into Red Bull Academy. Jake Bandy is Zakaria's teammate in the Aston Martin. So this is a unique pair, because I know the both of them pretty good. They both have their flashes of greatness, and they've had roller coasters of seasons, where they have their highs, have their lows, and they have moments of consistencies. Other times they have bad moments, but these two, one thing that they're really consistent with is pretty much their attendance and how they can conduct themselves on track during races.
I think Jake Bannon needs to fix his racecraft just a little bit, in my honest opinion. That's just my honest opinion. Zakaria,
Fair.
everyone asks themselves with Zakaria, when is this guy ever going to win? And I still wonder the same thing. If he gets a Red Bull opportunity, is it possible? Maybe. I don't know his pace this game. I don't. But I'll tell you right now with Zakaria, the best thing for him is probably getting the new gen with this game and everything surrounding it. It's just upgrading. I remember he was one of the last drivers needing to do so. There was talks about that. For Zakaria, just perform decent. He got a podium 2 seasons ago. Returned to the podium there for the first time in a game cycle. First time in Tier 2 in a hefty long time. I think it was 10 seasons we were talking. And for Jake Bandy, that first Tier 3 win finally came 2 seasons ago. Now, we're looking at a driver to get a first Tier 2 podium. And he had a chance in Hungary 2 seasons ago. And that was it. His teammate won the race, though. So at least he can sit here and say he wasn't far off. Even though everyone was far off of Polo that day. And Polo, he's not racing full-time. But the thing is that I know Jake Bandy and Zakaria, they're 2 drivers who have learned a lot off of him throughout the time here. Whether that be Jake Bandy just last game, in terms of when Polo was at McLaren and Mercedes, or Zakaria back in the day when Polo was winning F2 and in Tier 1. And I look at this lineup and I say, you have a tale of 2 different worlds. Zakaria used to be in Tier 1, Jake Bandy used to be in Tier 3. So, Red Bull Academy this car is a part of. So, an interesting lineup there.
Yes, very much so in regards to that. So, let us see here. Just trying to get something, just getting something cleared up here.
No worries.
Yeah, it's just a little bit.
You want to go to our next one?
Just mishaps. Yeah. So our next pair is the Alpine team. So the pairing for the Alpine team, we have Rowley as the driver in the Alpine, and his teammate. Well, in RPL he's going by Flairbov, but when he joined, he was known as Steve. He is brand new. He's pretty much brand new to the league. So, Steve, I don't know much about in regards to him, but Rowley, I do know of because Rowley has been showing great consistency in regards to his pace in the last few races in the McLaren Alpine Academy. He's had his moments of greatness and has also had some times where he struggles, but I think maybe this season he could start turning it around and perform much better.
New game, new things. I don't agree on most of the things you said there about Rowley, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. A driver that shows up, a driver that's consistent with his pace, but doesn't seem fast. And Tier 2 is where he should be. He made a Tier 1 start to start off at Spa in that crazy race where Leo, Jack, and TB all smashed into each other. The race where Rowley started in Spa, he was in the Alpine, and yeah, it's not the fastest car, it's not the slowest car, but he wasn't really anywhere to be found. And he wasn't very slow, but he proved that race where he was at the back, he needed to be Tier 2. He is now, and again, he's not been the slowest tier, but he's in the tier he belongs in. And that's the good thing. You don't want a driver being in a tier where they shouldn't be in and then get demotivated and say, I don't want to race anymore. With Rowley, this is a driver that shows up. That's a good thing. He's next to Steve. We don't know a lot about him, but this is a lineup that I think doesn't have the chemistry right now. And I think that's the problem for Merc Academy with this lineup. But it's drivers you can build with. This is a brand new game for everybody, so there's new things to find out as the moment goes. So they're not going into this mid-game, mid-season. They're going into this straight off the bat, and that's the good thing.
Yes, very much so. So our next team for Tier 2, we have the Haas team. And the team pairing for this one, we have Lennon, who we're all familiar with, has great racing capabilities, has done pretty good in regards to his racing capabilities. Now, this individual I do not know much about, so you can enlighten me on him.
Okay.
FRT Ward is his teammate.
I think this is an underdog lineup when we want to talk about it. Lennon has won before in Tier 2, makes that similar to what everyone would call with Jack, once a season pole award. With Lennon, it's once a season on that top step of the podium. Back on 23, he was up there once, and then I think it was 2 seasons ago, he was up there once. So it's more like once a game cycle. With Lennon, though, in the Haas, this is good for him. He can get Ferrari opportunities when possible, maybe. But for him, start to find something more to build yourself up more as a first driver. That's, I think, the big thing he's going to be looking to do for Lennon's case. Just do that, because clearly at Ferrari, he was not the number one when Night Owl had issues or Night Owl needed a teammate right there. And I don't think that's always a bad thing. You're going to have number one drivers, you're going to have number two drivers. But for Haas, he will need to be. Titan was saying he didn't know much about Wards, but I'll tell you about Wards. He made a start in Baku as his first start for Mercedes and did pretty well there. I think that was the day where Schwartz got pulled by a country mile in the sprint. And that was not as chaotic weekend as we thought it'd be. Yes, Ward's DNF'd in the race, but his pace was there. Just got to put it all together. Maybe with a new esports team, that's sometimes what you need to have happen. You put it all together, and it all ends up well. So yeah.
Good. All right. So our next team is the Racing Bulls for Tier 2, and we have an interesting pair here. So we have, I believe he is the season 12 Tier 2 champion. That is JNT. Right. He is in the Racing Bulls, and his teammate is Bartu.
This is a very weird lineup. JNT, a champion, Bartu. Everyone knows him for that airborne accident in Brazil. It might have been an AI, he might have not been. But he wasn't fast in that Ferrari.
I did hear about that.
He wasn't fast in Ferrari that day from the back of the grid when Ferrari needed him. We're talking about drivers who Ferrari needed that season, last season. Lennon, we were talking about, he did show strides. I'm not going to go against Lennon, but I'm saying someone who didn't is Bartu. And, you know, maybe being in a car that isn't as fast, but is faster than last game Sauber, you could say. Maybe there's a chance to prove yourself. And he wanted that opportunity. He got that in Brazil. It didn't go well. This game, brand new destiny. Try to prove yourself there. And JNT, I raced at the end of last game in a different league, and I'll tell you this about JNT. He's not lost it. He's not. He got a pole at the beginning of the game cycle last season in Tier 2. Didn't win anything last game cycle, but he had podiums here and there. And he went back to Red Bull before the end of the game cycle for a race or two and kept spinning out. Well, last season, those starts in V-Carb he made, got a 4th in Imola, I believe it was, unless it was Beatnik, but JNT was not far behind. JNT was there in other races too when he showed up. Just about showing up for this driver and staying motivated. That's really about it that I look at. With JNT, that race in Brazil I did with him at the end of the game cycle, he didn't spin out. He didn't show any wrongdoing. And you know what? Maybe that motivation, maybe that confidence boost is back. Get a driver to lead bar 2. You got that in JNT.
Completely agree on that one. So, next up, our penultimate team for Tier 2, and we have the Williams team. So, Williams has a very unique pairing. We have Isha, who moved from Haas in the last game cycle. He is going to be in the Williams, and he is going to be partnered by a returning driver who's going to be in Tier 2, Corey Marshall. So this is going to be a very interesting pairing for there, because Isha has had some okay races. last season while racing in the Haas car. So possibly him being in the Williams, as Williams is a little bit better in regards to car performance. I think maybe Isha could be fighting for points every now and again. And Corey Marshall, he was a Tier 1 race winner, was actually chasing Luke for the championship way back in Season 5 Tier 1, but it's been quite a while since he's last raced, so he's basically going to be finding his footing back in RPL racing, and he is going to be doing that in the Williams car for Tier 2.
Yeah, I just see Williams have it listed as Marshall, so again, similar to, I guess, the whole confusing thing with get wrecked and wrecked by storm. I just hope that's the right Marshall. But, I mean, it's a good thing that it is, though. Corey Marshall, he was supposed to reserve, I think, at the end of 23, maybe it was, and never did. But maybe he'll come back this game and show us what we were missing, And maybe that's the driver that can lead Isha here. Isha, I'm looking for improvement. Tier 3, there was a points finish there. I want to say there was to start off in their Tier 2 career maybe once. But there's a lot of P11s, there's a lot of P12s, and for a team with Williams caliper now this game, not going to cut it. And they could have got themselves a points finish in Baku, but you know what? Holding up Reece Dainty was probably the highlight in that season. And it definitely changed the complexion of things in the championship. That was a race where Reece probably could have won after Torn Penguin got on the right strategy, and Night Owl and Reece had to play the catch-up game. And Night Owl got to the podium, Reece didn't. So, it's two different tales in that sense, and what could have been for Haas and getting a point then in Baku. But didn't happen, and they had a lot of P11s that season, and that was one of them. And yeah, like I said, I'm just looking for improvement from Isha. Corey Marshall, we know him well, but we've not seen him in a lot of games, so we don't know what we know. We don't know what we know from before, because what we know from before might not be what it is now. You look at Maxwell. Maxwell came back, not the same. So we'll see.
Indeed, indeed. So now our final team for Tier 2 to go over is the Sauber team. So we have Josh 433, been on the top of the step podium in F2 at least a few times. So, and we'll see how he handles himself in the Tier 2 car. And his teammate is your boss, the team principal of Ferrari Academy, Invade.
No traction control for Invade is going to be a big thing to learn, but is it easier this game? Is it not? Invade will be the one to tell us, I guess, in terms of how that learning curve is. Josh started this game on the top step of the podium. Last game started that on the top step and then ended it on the second step. Yeah, he came back after a little hiatus to racing in top cars and came back and did what he needed to. In Imola, when he raced for Haas and came back then, he spun out a few times. So Josh is a driver who still has it in him, and that'll be a good driver to lead Invade to the top with Sauber. And they're putting the slowest car, like I was telling you, for Tier 3. So do I expect a lot? No, but I expect Josh to just lead Invade here. Invade might be his boss, but it doesn't mean that Invade can't learn a thing or two off of him, and he might. No traction. We'll see how the destiny goes. He's not a Tier 2 rookie, but he is a returning driver to Tier 2.
Very much agreed on that. So, let's see. So, as we talked about in Tier 3, who do you think is the strongest driver pairing? Which driver pairing is the weakest? And which driver pairing do you think will be the surprise of the season?
Well, after we go through this, we'll go to the calendar, by the way, so we don't forget about it. But in terms of the strongest, this is tough because there's about 4 or 5 different lineups I look to. But I don't think I look at any lineup the same as I do compared to the other ones with Reece and Night Owl. Reece and Night Owl is the strongest lineup, and that's just based on chemistry, last game, and everything. Yeah, I know last game's not the same as this one, and there's a lot of different things, but Night Owl is a reigning champion. Reese has many of them when you look at RPL as a whole. And right now, he's probably, if we were to put betting odds like they did the presidential election last year and championship for F1 or whatever, if we put betting odds on who the most likely driver is to go back to Tier 1, it's Reese. And Ferrari did a smart but risky thing here in putting two drivers who are likely to move up to Tier 1 in their Ferrari car. But that'll also change Tier 2 because we'll see if there's any attendance after that, if that does happen. If there's more than one that goes. Weakest lineup? I don't know. I mean, I would have to say Alpine. I don't know much about him. I mean, I know Rolly, but I don't know Steve. And you're going into this thing brand new, so that's probably the only good thing about it. Everyone is too. It's the same level, same even ground for everyone. So I think that's the good thing for them. But Rolly didn't finish in the points often, so that doesn't help. Does he outperform the car? No. Will he do what the car does? Maybe. Just don't think it's the best lineup at all and nowhere near it. You don't have a driver that can rely on the other. They're newer drivers, so it doesn't help. And a lineup that might spark something out of nowhere. Man. You said Red Bull has Penguin and AJ. I mean, they are the team that I said for Tier 3, but it's not going to be the team I say for Tier 2. The team I say for Tier 2 is a top team, and maybe no surprise that I would choose these guys, but Mercedes, these guys and girls. Mercedes, I look at and I say, what's the missing piece here? Why? Why have there not been, these two in terms of championship talk the last few seasons? Why? Beatnik probably could have done so in Tier 3 under the right circumstances. Probably could have won a race. No, he decides to win in Tier 2 instead. Why? I don't know. Ask Beatnik maybe. He just decided to do it when he was reserving for Mercedes and on loan. But he's where he should be now, and he's faster. And you want to talk about drivers who could be moved up when that whole conversation comes back, when George sees the first race or the first qualifying session. He might be in that conversation. The good thing is the two drivers who are most likely in that conversation, like we had 10 billion times more than we should have last season, are probably Beatnik and Reese. And Beatnik here with Mintoki is my lineup that does maybe go to the next step. We're looking at Mintoki saying, all right, first win, first pole, first season with, first time not being a one-win wonder, more podiums, more poles. What's next? When's the championship coming? It didn't happen last game. This game is probably the best thing for her with Dirty Air. You qualify on pole and just qualify in the distance, hopefully. But I think this lineup takes the next step to where it's not the second best car. It's maybe not even the third best car. But because this lineup shows up and can rely on each other and does what they should, they might be in a championship hunt for the constructors when maybe they shouldn't because of the car they're in. But the driver pairing is what does it.
Yeah, that's definitely some very good points in that regard. So I do agree on Mercedes being the surprise team of the season. I see a pretty good, wonderful dynamic between Mintoki and Beatnik, and they definitely have the chemistry. I think they can have the chemistry to really shine on in regards to the season itself. I also agree on Alpine being the worst pairing, mainly because of the rookie that we don't know much about, and Rolly does have his moments. He does have his moments of doing really good, and then have his moments of not being so great. But I mean, that can be the thing in regards to that. The only thing I'm actually going to be disagreeing with you on is the strongest pairing in Tier 2. I am actually going to, mainly because we don't know what if if Reese and Night Owl are going to be staying together for the entire season. We don't know if one of them is going to get separated and moved up to tier 1. And you also noted that Night Owl was having a little bit of struggling in the early going of the game of this game, even though the game's been only out for a little over a week. So with those factors taken into consideration, I am actually going to say Red Bull is going to be the strongest pairing, and mainly because of how AJ was in tier 3 and him going up into tier 2 and probably showing that same stride that he was in tier 3, and how good Torn Penguin was over the last couple of seasons in tier 2. That's why I say that I think Red Bull is going to be a very dangerous lineup.
Yeah,
they're going to be a dangerous lineup in regards to that.
The improvements from Penguin is immense when you think about it. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't really say a bad word about the guy, and a very nice guy when talking to him as well. I mean, he might get a little impatient. I know that from a little personal experience in Imola, but that's okay. I can say the same about Reese Dainty then, if I'm going to go on that topic, but that's okay. I mean, sometimes you need a driver who's fueled and fired up, and I think you got a fired up lineup in Red Bull, so I'm happy to see that.
Right. So now let's take a look at our Tier 2 calendar for this is season 17 of Tier 2. And one thing I will note is that half of the calendar for Tier 2 is identical to Tier 3. So, Tier 2, by the way, is on Fridays, 8 p.m. UK, for those that want to tune in to our Twitch to watch these races. So, for Tier 2, the first 2 rounds is identical to Tier 3. The season opener will be at Bahrain, and the reverse layout of Silverstone will be the second round. That's gonna be fun in that
first
regards.
Reverse track
Also
is the home race for most of the field too.
And round 3 is also the same as Tier 3. We're gonna be at Monza for that one. Round 4, this is where it splits off from Tier 3. Round 4, we're gonna be at Baku for the round 4 of the season. Then hitting the halfway point will be around the mighty Spa-Francorchamps in regards to wrapping up the first half of that season. Round 6 is where things get devilish.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember the last time this appeared on a Tier 2 calendar, but we are going back to Monaco for Tier 2. And that is round 6 of the calendar. Since you know it, when was the last time we were at Monaco for Tier 2?
If you combine F1.5 and Tier 2 together, in the 21 seasons this will be as of starting this season, this is only the third time Monaco has appeared on the calendar. Season 9 of Tier 2, the first season of the 23 game cycle. Season 13, the first season of the 24 game cycle, and now season 17, the first season of the 25 game cycle. So only the third time for Monaco is the third time the charm for how this race will go.
Yeah, very much so. And now round 7, and this is where the Tier 2, Tier 3 calendar differences ends, as Tier 2 for round 7 is going to be the reverse layout of the Red Bull Ring. So we'll be seeing them. So we'll be seeing Austria reverse for that one. And then for the last 3 rounds of Tier 2, following similar to Tier 3, round 8 is Vegas. Round 9, the reverse layout of Zandvoort. And the season finale will be at Brazil. So Tier 2, all 3 reverse tracks will appear on the calendar.
That's what I find interesting. Austria ran a few seasons ago, and it was a DRS train. We ran it in Season 13 as well. It was a DRS train for second on back then, but I mean, I look at that one and I want to talk about it quickly like I did with Zandvoort. I look at that one and I say, well, there are some of the opening corners of the track where you say, kind of opens up a little bit with how it is compared to before. Some bold moves might be made into that section, but that's okay. However, the difference compared to before at Austria that I think we could see is drag races, photo finishes. Now, I know we saw a lot of them last game. There might not be a lot with dirty air this game, but the chance for it at all the reverse races comes most likely at this one. 3 DRS zones back to back to back to finish up the race. And if you get 2 drivers that are close to each other, you might see some chaos erupt, and I think this might be the place for it, and I cannot wait for it.
All right, so just before we go into the Tier 1 section, we'll go over some random predictions for Tier 2. And honestly, I think the first one we could easily know, just like in Tier 3, who do we think is going to be the championship contenders for it? And honestly, in my opinion, there's actually more drivers.
This is the toughest one.
There's a lot more drivers involved in it. But if I had to condense it down to 3, that will probably be the big ones. And
this is tough, isn't it?
I'm gonna say yeah, and like I said, if Reese stays the full season, he's a good contender. He's a good contender for it. If Night Owl gets out of the little rut he has and is back on the pace that he was to be the champion last season, he's also a contender. But if I had to condense it down to 3 people, I would say it is going to be both the Red Bulls of AJ and Torn Penguin.
Wow.
And we haven't talked much about him ever since the introduction. Lero Fusion in McLaren.
Yeah.
I'm thinking those are going to be your 3 main ones.
I kind of overrated him last season, and I felt bad for it, but I look at this and I say, yep, Reese, if he stays the full season, I agree there. I think you got to go with one of the Mercedes, and I got to say Beatnik with that one. Probably Beatnik just because the race pace advantage. And I got to go with one of the McLarens. And I'm going to say Maxwell instead of Penguin right there, or one of the Red Bulls. Because for Maxwell's case, I feel like this game would suit his driving style more, and going down to Tier 2 would bring him back to where he used to be. If it's not him, then I would say Penguin, and that'd probably be my replacement for Reese if he gets moved up, but I don't know. I mean, that was the whole conversation last season. Who's going to move up? Who's going to be changed tiers? Now we're looking at who are the 3 to put in the favorite, and yeah, we're still looking at who could be moved up, but I think we're more looking at a dead serious headline here, and that is who's the 3. You put it down to 3 drivers who are going to be in contention, and I'll tell you right now, this is probably the toughest 3 to go to that I could think of. We've looked at Tier 3 seasons before, or sorry, Tier 2 seasons before, where you say there's more than 3 people. There's numerous guys, maybe 7, 8, 9 guys who could win a race here. With the field spread now, though, compared to last game and compared to the game before, I look at things and I say, there's a lot of contenders, but of the 8, there's a lot of them that are in cars that are pretenders, and that's what just doesn't make it the same here for me. That's why, Maxwell is in the best car, and that's great. Reese and Beatnik are not, and the good thing for them is they have Tier 1 pace to outperform their cars to where it makes them more relevant than some of these drivers we're naming. And that's where you say, look, the car advantage McLaren is going to have is bigger than last game, but the drivers still might make the difference with some of these.
Yeah. And I think to wrap up for the predictions, I'm going to be saying a completely random prediction. And this is probably going to be a bit of a bold and maybe a bit of a hot take. But I'm going to be saying for my random big prediction, I don't know which track it'll be, but I am going to be saying that I think even though he is all the way down in the Racing Bulls, I would not be surprised if J&T somehow manages to pull out a top 5 in one race this season.
I thought when you were talking about backmarker equipment, I think you'd probably provide Williams in this, because I did hear talk about people saying, oh, well, Williams might win a race now this game cycle in RPL. Maybe. But we're not to tier 1 yet, are we? We're not. However, my prediction here, and this is similar to my one in tier 3 with how it's made, since all 3 reverse trucks are ran, I'm going to say it doesn't happen often? No. But when it happens, is it chaotic? Oh yeah, it is. We are going to have an accident. Well, we always have accidents. It's an F1 game. Duh. No, we're going to have an accident at one of the reverse races with 2 drivers either entering the pit lane or exiting the pit lane. Think about the chance for that. Austria reverse. You're going into the pit lane the way you'd go out of it. Yeah, it's like that for all the reverse trucks. But you're going in at immense speed, and you don't even get to the pit lane line until later on. Coming out of the pit lane, you thought the pit lane entrance was crazy? How about exit it the way you enter it? And you go right into the apex. You're going to have an accident somewhere, whether it be there, Silverstone, or Zandvoort. Silverstone, you look at going into the pit lane, maybe the only place. Coming out of it, you're kind of coming out of it right into Stowe. Maybe more likely there than entering it. As for Zandvoort, you exit the pit lane, and you go to bank turn, the bank last corner it is going forwards, but it's bank turn 1. Entering it, you got a wall right there. And again, you don't necessarily go engage the pit limiter right away. Maybe less likely to fit 2 cars side by side there, but it's very likely to fit 2 cars side by side entering the bank last corner going forwards, but the bank turn 1 going backwards, and have an accident. I'm going to say, with these tier 2 drivers with this crazy field, there's going to be an accident between 2 drivers with the pit lane exit, pit lane entry with one of the reverse tracks. We're running all 3 of them. There could be at all 3 of them for all we know. But it'll be fun to watch out for. I hate predicting accidents, but you know what? With the pit lane, with the pit lanes here, it's kind of fun.
Oh yes, very much so. Okay. Well, that concludes the tier 2 section.